It's like watching Auschwitz on TikTok. As a survivor of the Holocaust, 1938 to 1945, Aaron Matte's dear and esteemed father just said this week, it's like watching Auschwitz on TikTok. At least if you watch, it would appear that the political leadership in Western countries and virtually every single journalist and broadcaster in the Western media are simply not watching the pictures on TikTok, simply not watching the pictures on X or on YouTube or on the mother of all talk shows. It seems to be the case that they have made a collective decision to pretend that the Auschwitz in Gaza is not happening. That's the most charitable interpretation that I can possibly make, because if it were true that they were watching tents on fire, if it were true that they actually saw the most iconic image of the entire genocide this very week of patients attached to their IV tubes being burned alive, scorched and burned alive in a hospital, if it really was true that our politicians and our journalists were watching this but were unmoved by it, well, that would call into question not only their morals, but their actual sense. It would call into question whether we are being ruled in Western countries by certifiable maniacs. Because only a certifiable maniac could look at those pictures on that screen, could look at the pictures of the patients with their IV tubes still visible, burning alive in a hospital. Only the insane, the certifiably insane. In fact, only the inmates of Ward 5 at Broadmoor, the asylum for the criminally insane, could possibly be unmoved by those images, could possibly want to continue arming and funding and diplomatically covering for and propaganda shilling for acts of mass murder not seen since Auschwitz, since the Holocaust of Nazi-occupied Europe. And the difference being, they could pretend they didn't know what was happening in Auschwitz because nobody had a camera and nobody had invented TikTok. They have no such excuse in the chancelleries of Europe, in the corridors of power, in Western parliaments, in the big broadcasting houses, in the big media operations, in the newspaper newsrooms, in the editorial conferences, none of them any alibi at all. They are all deeply complicit with one of the greatest crimes of human history. Approaching 200,000 dead Palestinians, 10% of the entire population of the Gaza Strip, up to 70% of them, women and children. Women and children being incinerated, being starved, being poisoned, subject to the four horsemen of the apocalypse, trampling them down in the fruit of their childhoods in too many cases. The pictures and the testimony is too damning to ever forgive any of the political actors who have facilitated this. And that means virtually all of them. It means, above all, the President and Vice President of the United States of America. Joe Biden has at least the alibi of being an imbecile. He has the alibi of having Alzheimer's. He has the alibi of senility. Kamala Harris has none of those. She knows she's a part of this very great crime, and no one should vote for her. Anyone who does vote for her is authorizing, is vindicating these horrific crimes. We'll be talking to Manar Adley, the founder and chief editor of Mint Press, just in a few minutes to talk about these matters. The situation in the Donbass is, on one level, encouraging. The war is rapidly coming to an end. The bad news, it implies the mass death of young and old Ukrainian servicemen, swept off the street by press gangs, pressed into the front line, ill-clad, ill-equipped, ill-trained for the purpose. They're fighting gallantly enough. They're fighting bravely enough, but they are being slaughtered in extraordinary numbers. The life expectancy of the 58-year-old men and the 26-year-old boys that are now on that front line must be precious close to just a day or two. The Russian advance continues apace. Russia has decided that it will no longer entertain the likes of Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, who complains that Vladimir Putin will not answer his telephone calls. It's perfectly obvious that the Russians have decided they are going to bring this war to a close in very short order indeed. I was criticized just the other day for saying that the war will be over by Christmas. I'm absolutely sure now that it will, and not in a good way. The testimony of Professor Dan Kowalik, just back from the Donbass, will be a very important report on and from the front line. We'll be talking in the course, how can it be otherwise, about the economic collapse as we enter what will be a long and cold and poor winter in the European satrapies of the United States of America. But I want to turn, if I may, to my friend Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was overthrown in a CIA-engineered coup d'etat and replaced with an imported government of criminals, most of them on Pakistan's wanted list for high crimes and misdemeanors against the people of Pakistan. Imran Khan made the mistake of being in Moscow on the day that the special military operation, now a full-scale war, began in the Ukraine. He made the mistake of saying no to the Western demands that he allow Pakistan to become a base camp for attacks against its neighbor in Afghanistan. He made the mistake of saying absolutely not when asked if Pakistan could be drafted into the coalition of the killing, which is laying waste human beings in the Yemen, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and above all, in occupied Palestine. He made the mistake of being a powerful and popular leader of a Muslim country, a nuclear-armed Muslim country, with a border with Iran, with whom he would brook no enmity. He made the mistake of being the kind of leader that Pakistan has long wanted and indeed needed. He has been held now for more than a year in increasingly farcical judicial circumstances. Every time the courts order his release, he's rearrested and charged with something else. Each charge more bogus, more ridiculous than the last. He's accused of corruption, whilst being the least corrupt leader Pakistan has ever had since Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of the nation. He is the rightful champion of well over 70% of the population of Pakistan, which is a lot of people. So in that sense, even behind bars, Imran Khan is a very dangerous man. Not dangerous to the people of Pakistan, not dangerous to the people of the global south, not dangerous to the people who will be gathering in Kazan for the BRICS conference in the next couple of days. Not dangerous to any of them. Indeed, Imran Khan would have been present in Kazan at the BRICS, meeting the other leaders of the global south, of whom he was an adornment. So they've been keeping him in prison, repeatedly rearresting him. They've arrested now his wife and all of his family, including his sisters are all now behind bars. So much, so bad. But in the last month or so, they have changed the character and nature of his incarceration. They switched off the lights. Literally, he's in the dark all the time in prison in Pakistan. The cook that he trusted not to poison him with the prison food has been sent on extended leave. Doctors have been refused access. His lawyers refused access. And as Jemima Khan, his former wife, pointed out just the other day, that notwithstanding 2 court orders which ordered the jailers to allow him telephone contact with his 2 British sons by her, he has been cut off from the sanity-saving pleasure of talking with his own sons on the telephone at his own expense from the prison. Is this just cruel and unusual punishment? Maybe. But I have a distinct feeling that it's something much worse than that. I have the distinct feeling that they are preparing the ground for killing Imran Khan. Now, let me say, as I have said ad nauseum, although Imran Khan is a friend of mine and a man I greatly admire ever since he was the captain of Pakistan's wonderful cricket team, now 40 years ago or more, I am not his party man. I am not a supporter of his party. I spent decades at the side of the late Benazir Bhutto. I came into Pakistani politics trying to save the life of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the martyr who was hanged by the military dictator Zia-ul-Haq. If it were not for what happened a year ago in the coup d'etat against Imran, I would have been taking pleasure in the fact that Benazir's son Bilawal, who I used to carry in my arms as a baby, was now the esteemed foreign minister of Pakistan. But things have changed. How could they not? I hold the 2 highest awards in Pakistan, the Hilal-e-Quaid-e-Azam and the Hilal-e-Pakistan. The first of those I was given for my work in the movement for the restoration of democracy in Pakistan. How can I look at my medals? How can I look at the scrolls on my walls which accompanied those medals and watch democracy being murdered in Pakistan and not raise my voice against it? How could I not? Having striven so hard to save the life of the great Mr. Bhutto himself, of his daughter Benazir herself, how could I remain silent when the elected Prime Minister of Pakistan may be murdered like a dog in a dungeon in the dark in the next few days? Those next few days may afford an opportunity for murder most foul in Pakistan. Those next few days may involve an all-out attack by the gangster state of Israel on the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in the ensuing chaos, as Iran responds 10, 20, 100 times fold the last ballistic missile attack they made on military infrastructure in the apartheid state, all kinds of crimes may very well be committed. And one of those may be against Imran Khan in Pakistan. Fasten your seatbelts. This is going to be a bumpy night. It already is a bumpy night. I'm already more than 15 minutes late in turning to my first guest after this short break, Minar Adley, founder and director of Mint Press and Behind the Headlines. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.